So now we are ready to go ahead and balance equations. Our first step is we have to write all of the elements and the number of atoms for both reactants and products. So there you have it. So chlorine, I look at chlorine over here, how many atoms he has? 2. So I'm going to put 2 on the side of chlorine. Next, I am going to write sodium. How many atoms of sodium do I have? 1. Good, so I'm going to put 1 over on the side of it. Then I have oxygen, 1, hydrogen, 1. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to write oxygen with 1, hydrogen with 1. Next, for the right-hand side, chlorine, I have 1 plus 1, right, for chlorine. So I'm going to go ahead and write that 1 plus 1 is 2. For sodium, I have 1 plus 1, okay? So I have 1 plus 1, and we know that that is 2. And then for oxygen, I have 1 here, and I also have 1 here. So I'm going to write 1 plus 1 again equals 2. And hydrogen, I have 2 atoms of hydrogen, so I'm just going to put 2 there. That's it. That's our first step. So the next step is we have to use the acronym MINOR to help us decide in which order we will balance. So MINOR stands for M, metals, I, polyatomic ions, okay, and then N is for nonmetals, O is for oxygen, and H is for hydrogen. So that's how you decide in which order you will be balanced. So now we are ready to balance. So we've already written out our chart, and we've placed our elements, and then on the side of them we would have also placed the number of atoms. Okay, we did that for each of those elements, both on the reactant side and on the product side. So next we need to decide in which order we're going to be balancing them. So we recall MINOR. So according to MINOR, we have to balance off our metal first. Which metal do we have here? We have sodium. Polyatomic ion, we do have hydroxide here, but because hydroxide is only present on the left-hand side, we are not going to be balanced. We are not going to consider him a polyatomic ion today, because even though he is a polyatomic ion, we're not going to balance him second because we only have him present on the left-hand side. He is not on the right-hand side. Okay, so non-metal, we have chlorine. And then we have oxygen and hydrogen. So that is the order in which we will be balancing this today. So what's next? So if we look at sodium, right? We have 1 sodium on the left. And then on the right hand side, we have 1 plus 1 sodium, okay? Which gives us 2 sodiums, all right? So we need to make the number of sodium atoms the same. So we have to multiply the coefficient 1 in front of sodium, all right? And we're going to be multiplying that by 2, okay? Because we have 2 on the right hand side, so our goal is, listen, what am I going to be multiplying this 1 by in order for me to get it to be the same as, to get it to be 2? And the only thing that we can multiply this 1 by to get it to be 2 is by 2, right? So we're going to do that, okay? So we are going to be doing that. So we have 1 times 2 is 2 for sodium, all right? And we multiply the sodium by 2, so we need to then insert that 2 in the front of sodium hydroxide, because that's where we find sodium. Okay, now look, if we look at this, we put the 2 in front of sodium hydroxide, but remember, looking at it, we also have oxygen and we also have hydrogen on the side of sodium. So that 2 is going to be multiplied by, that 2 is for sodium and it is also for oxygen and hydrogen. So what we do next is we make sure we do that. We multiply the 2, both for oxygen, all right, so that 2 gets multiplied by oxygen 1, which gives us 2, and then for hydrogen, we are going to be doing the same thing, okay? We're going to be doing the same thing for hydrogen, all right? So the next thing that we're going to be balancing is our chlorine. So chlorine atoms are the same on both sides. Okay, so if we look at it, chlorine is 2 here and it's also 2 here. So we leave it alone. Don't fool with it. Move on to the next. So the next one we have is oxygen. Okay, so oxygen on the left is 2. All right, and oxygen on the right is also 2. So what do? We leave it alone. Next, we look at hydrogen. On the left, hydrogen is 2, and on the right, hydrogen is also 2. So you need to also leave hydrogen alone. So this reaction is balanced. Next rule of thumb is if polyatomic ions are present on both reactants and product side, you have to treat it as a unit. So let's look here. What do we mean by that? So KOH is present on the left, but do we see him present on the right? No. So that's not referring to him. So let's look at sulfate. Sulfate is present on the left. Is it present on the right? Yes. So we are talking about sulfate. So we have our first step, which is we wrote down all of the elements, and then on the side of them we wrote the number of atoms present for each. Okay, so that's what we did. Now you see hydrogen here. I have hydrogen here, and I also have hydrogen here. But there's a plus sign here, so I need to put 1 hydrogen here plus 2 hydrogen. So 1 plus 2. And then for sulfate, okay, remember we said the polyatomic ions, we have to treat them as a unit. So we don't separate them. So sulfate, I have sulfate present on both the left and on the right hand side. Alright, so I leave it together. And remember the formula for sulfate is SO4. Okay, and if we have more than one sulfate, we would have a bracket with the number outside of it. Okay, we don't have a bracket and a number outside of it, so we can see that the sulfate right here is just 1. So we put 1 here. Sulfate on the right hand side is also just 1. Okay, so that's our first step. Next step is we need to decide in which order we are going to be balancing this reaction. So remember my law. Alright, and then according to our law, we are going to balance potassium, sulfate, oxygen, and then hydrogen. Okay, so there we go. So let's balance off our potassium. So potassium, we have 2 potassium on the right and 1 potassium on the left. So what are we going to be multiplying this 1 by in order for us to get it to be the same as on the right, which is 2? Smart. You multiply it by 2, right? That's it. So 1 times 2 gives you 2. And when you multiply it by 2, now you need to go and put that number that you would have multiplied by, you need to go and put that number in front of potassium. So do that right away. Don't wait. Okay? And then also look and see what is on the side of potassium, because this 2 means that everything that's in the back of it has to be multiplied by 2. So I have 2 in front of K and OH. So that means, listen, you need to go ahead and make sure you multiply those oxygen and those hydrogens. Alright? Multiply those atoms by 2. So for oxygen, I also had 1, right? So I need to multiply that by 2. So 1 times 2 gives you 2. Next, we do the same thing for hydrogen. Alright? So hydrogen here, we have the 1 here, and it is this 1 for hydrogen that we are multiplying by 2. So I'm going to say 1 hydrogen times 2, alright, and that's going to be giving me 2, alright, but we also have hydrogen over here. Remember, we have the 2 hydrogen over here, so we have to also keep that in mind. So this right here, hydrogen right here, is 2 times 1, which is 2, and we're going to add that with this 2 over here, so that's going to give us 4. You're smart. Good stuff. Alright, so that's what we do. Alright, so what do we do next? Alright, so the next thing is we need to go ahead and we need to balance our sulfate. Alright, so sulfate is 1 on the left hand side, and it is also 1 on the right hand side. So because sulfate is both 1 on the left and on the right hand side, that means we leave it alone and we move on to the next one. Smart. So what's the next one? Oxygen. So oxygen on the left side I have 2, and oxygen on the right hand side I have 1. So what am I going to multiply that by? You're smart. Yes, we're going to be multiplying it by 2 in order for us to get it to be 2, the same as we have it on the left. So 2 times 1 gives us 2. Alright, so that's it. So I go ahead and I take a 2 and I need to put it in the front of oxygen, which is right here. Okay, I need to put it in front of oxygen right here. Right? Now, when I'm done doing that, all right, remember we look and we see this 2 right here tells us that the hydrogen and the oxygen is going to be multiplied by 2. Okay, so I also have hydrogen here. So my hydrogen, I had 2 hydrogen, so I need to also multiply that by 2. So it's going to be 2 times 2, which is 4. So now I have 4 hydrogens. Okay, so the next thing I need to balance is my hydrogens. So I have 4 hydrogen on the right and I have 4 hydrogens on the left. That means they are the same, so what will we do? We leave it alone. Okay, and that is it. So you go ahead and you try at it. Okay, go right ahead and you balance off. You balance these 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, balance these 4 to test yourself to see if you really understood what we were doing today. Good luck.